Hello, and welcome to this week's program of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. Each week, we connect with and hear from fascinating and inspirational speakers, often with a message focused on our interests in innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. As a Rotary Club, we look for ways these programs might foster new approaches to improving communities near and far. We're glad you've joined us and hope you'll enjoy how we are exploring how technology can serve the business of service to others. This week, we have Roger, and he is going to talk to us today about something I'm learning for the first time. So I'm looking forward to Roger. You can take it away.
Thank you very much, Nick. First of all, if you are just starting on this video, please pause it and go and obtain a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, because you will need it during the term of the watching the video. Now, I was called to the bar of to be a lawyer in 1974. And at that time, one of my weaknesses was that I was not very familiar with public speaking. And as a result of that deficiency, or I needed to update and start to learn about the principles of speaking, and also to learn about how to not only to speak to a large audience, but to do it on a minute's notice. And as a result of that, in 1975, I joined Toastmasters, and I was a member of Toastmasters for about 5 years. And I would recommend Toastmasters to any person who feels that they need to, on occasion, speak in front of a group of people in order to learn about the principle, because they're a very good organization. About 1980, the American Trial Lawyers Association was attempting to establish a branch in British Columbia, Canada. And as a result, at that time, they held a number of seminars in Vancouver, which I attended. And I was a member of the American Trial Lawyers Association for about 8 to 9 years afterwards. Now, during that period of time, I bought cassettes from them to listen to. I attended several of their sessions. And in addition to that, I went down to Reno, Nevada to attend a week's of workshops with the association. The theme at that point of time of the American Trial Lawyers Association was the art of persuasion. And a part of that was demonstrative rhetoric. And at that point of time, I was very impressed with the quality of the lawyers that participated in the program. Just to give you a few ideas of a few names of people, there was F. Lee Bailey gave a presentation. Vincent Bugasi gave a presentation. He was the prosecutor of Charles Manson case and wrote the book Helter Skelter. And also Harry Philo, who was one of the entrepreneurs who started in products liability. He was also a presenter. And these are just 3 of the people of the quality of the lawyers that were participating in the program at that point of time. Now, a part of the presentation was on demonstrative evidence, or demonstrative aids, or demonstrative rhetoric. And what are those types of aids or things that you talk about? They are models, films, pictures, sketches, points on a large piece of paper, and many x-rays, anything that you could use in addition to your presentation to assist in people understanding and also retaining the information that they were given. And there was a number of points they stressed about using demonstrative aids. You were to use them sparingly, only to increase understanding and retention. They were to be large enough so that they could be easily seen and read. And you were to only use 3 bullet points on a chart of paper. And you had to be very aware of what they call the timing issue, because it's difficult for a person to read some points on a chart and also to listen to the presenter at the same time. And the most important thing that they stressed is that it's very important that the audience continue to listen to you and your voice, and the demonstrative aids were only to be used to increase understanding and retention. Then we go to, excuse me, 1990, and at that point of time, Microsoft introduced PowerPoints. And then everyone started to use them. And within a few years, it was recommended that you use PowerPoints in a presentation in the following ways. Slides should have only 3 points on them. Writing on the slide should be large enough so that it could be easily read. The same font and size of font should be used consistently throughout all of your slides. And sketches or maps should be large enough so that they could be easily seen. As a result of this, most people started to, in various degrees, reading their slides or partially reading them, and the number of slides greatly multiplied. And they are, and if you've watched the programs that we've had, you'll note that most of the speakers rely extremely heavily upon PowerPoint. As part of my updating of my skills, what I did is I went on and I did some research into what's the latest and newest of what's happening in the area of persuasion. And I was able to find 3 studies. One was from the UK, and 2 of them were from the US on specifically this issue. Now, I would like for you to write down on your piece of paper the following statement. PowerPoints tend to make your listeners stupid. The problem, and I would write this down as well, is with overload. A person cannot read something and listen to a speaker at the exact same time. Now, there's a very easy way to test yourself to prove this of what they have said. And that is that after a presentation, what you do then is sit back and ask yourself, what did I learn from this presentation? And what it will do then is it will prove exactly what you have just written down. Now, because of the problem with PowerPoints, I'm going to give you two good examples of two very good communicators who do not use PowerPoints. The first one is Jeff Bezos. What Jeff does is he sits down and on one or two pieces of paper, he will write out the points that he wishes to discuss in detail. Then between the sub-points and the points themselves, he will leave a space. Then what he will do is he will then hand out the piece of papers to the people who will be attending the meeting or the presentation so that they can, prior to the meeting, read the material, take and mark down their the points that they wish to add, and also to mark down the points that they wish to remember during the course of the presentation. Now, the other person that I would like to talk about is Tony Robbins. He does not use PowerPoints either. What he does is to his audience is he hands out a workbook. And what he leaves in the workbook is spaces in sentences for the audience to fill out. And also leaves them room to make notes. Now, the question comes, what now would I do? I would use PowerPoint sparingly, if at all, only to increase understanding and retention, and to make something which is complicated simple. I would only use 3 points on a slide, and then I would consider the timing issue. You have to give the listeners of your presentation time to read the slides, and then you stop, you judge when they're finished reading, and then you continue speaking. And if you had a diagram then what I would do is I would make it large enough so that it's very easily read by your people, and I would still maintain the timing issue in order that you can better explain to your audience. I would use the same font and size in all my slides. If I was using a series of pictures, for instance, I would put the picture on the slide up. I'd give the people an opportunity to look at the picture in detail. And then I would introduce the slide and talk about it. And I would do the same routine, excuse me, time after time. And that way, you can enhance for your listeners the understanding of what you're talking about and what you want them to see within the pictures and the and your aid. The primary focus that I would do, like I've done here, is to have you focus on me and my presentation and not on any PowerPoint. To remember that PowerPoints are to be used only as an exception. Now, one of the reasons that I got you, or the main reason that I got you to write down the theme of the 3 research points is very simple. By writing it down, your retention of that is far greater. In other words, a year from now, when you go to do a presentation yourself, you are more likely to remember those words that you just wrote down. And also then remember and think about this presentation so that your presentation will be successful. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you, Roger. I really appreciate it because I live day to day with a lot of PowerPoints. Before we get to questions, let me just introduce everybody else on the phone, on the video today. We have Carl, a new club member, joining one of our first recordings, which is exciting. He is sitting in Napa. We've got Sandy sitting in Fremont, California, and we've got Rory in Houston. So anybody have a question? Go ahead, Carl, and I think we can unmute you. Go for it.
Maybe it is a question, but maybe more of a comment. Most of my career, I was a chief financial officer, and most of my presentations involved numbers and graphs. And I'm wondering the applicability of filling in the blanks by the audience in that type of presentation.
With numbers and graphs, you have a very difficult problem in terms of communicating. Now, what I would do is I would put a slide up. I would give, because of the nature of the aid, I would give the audience sufficient time to review the slide in detail. And then I would go about introducing the slide. I would then talk about the slide so that they have already looked at the graph itself. And then by you talking, you will then reinforce what they have already seen on the graph. But how you have to judge the time it takes for the audience to view the slides in particular is you have to look at your audience and determine when they have completed the task of looking at the slide. So timing becomes a very crucial issue for you. If you rush it and talk while they are looking at the slides, then all you're doing is making them stupid and they will get nothing out of your presentation.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And their eyes usually glaze over after a couple of minutes.
Of course. Have I answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sandy or Rory, do you have you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. For those of you who don't know, I spent 20 years as a judge. And one of the things that I found to be absolutely appallingly stupid was in most of my hearings, we're not talking about a 2-week trial. We're talking about 2-3 hours. And then I might go back into chambers, talk to my clerk for a little bit and come out. But it's fairly short just because of the nature of the beast. Well, I would have lawyers who would come up and go, well, Judge, now what we're going to talk about is this, and I've given you a memorandum of law. Oh, okay. And then they start talking. Now, the first couple of years I was on the bench, I was trying to be nice and didn't say anything, but I eventually reached the point, said, do you want me to read this or do you want me to listen? And invariably they'd say, well, Judge, can't you do both? And I said, not well. And it's like, no one would object if they sent the court a copy and sent opposing counsel a copy a day or two beforehand so I can go home and read it. But they never do that. And this wasn't one lawyer or 2 lawyers, and they weren't necessarily bad lawyers. It's just, you want your audience to do one thing well, maybe, or 2 things badly, definitely. I just find it fascinating.
Yep. Thank you, Rory. I definitely feel that as well.
Yeah.
I'm a nurse, and I used to teach a class called Advanced Cardiac Life Support, and it was the program was put together by the American Heart Association, and I think people that never even touched a patient, so it's like they don't know, but they would send us these very, very busy slides that we had to show, because if we got audited, then you could not be an instructor anymore. So my way of teaching was I would put up the slides and then say, okay, here's one thing from each slide that I want you to remember. And these are the most important things, because it's going to be a lot of words. And they were just like, had arrows all over the place. It was crazy. And so, then it's like everybody kind of takes a deep breath and goes, okay, we can do this. So yeah, I like that statement that PowerPoint makes you stupid, makes your audience stupid, because that's true. People get overwhelmed. So thank you for doing that, Roger.
And Roger, I would say that this is ever present. I feel like I've been making presentations for 20 years, and I am typically presenting. I mean, truly, this morning sent in a response for a request for proposal, and I had to, over the past week, guide my team to hit the top line. Like in this case, what does somebody care about? They care about what is the final number, and you would be amazed. Our company does a good job of making a single page proposal so that there's not this totally really long drawn out process where you have 75 slides. However, all they want is one line, and you need to bring that to the top, and then you can have all that other stuff. Like if you want to read a novel, go for it. Like Rory said, if that document they sent you or gave you is probably very important and lays out some very important details to make that decision, but you got to give it time to read it. Any other questions?
Yeah.
So Roger, first I just want to say thank you. I actually really appreciated understanding how you got to talk about this, because I really appreciated the timeline as well. That was very interesting, and thinking about transcending, especially for somebody who is younger today and starts off with their smartphone today, and thinking about how did they present things, thinking about how tangibly that someone would learn and understand the details. And now I understand what demonstrative rhetoric is, because you made it very clear with the models and the films and the maps and the ideas of that. It is so obvious now that we hear about it. So thank you. So now that we've wrapped up our Q&A, I'd like encourage everyone who's enjoyed this program to let us know what you think. Below on our website, you'll find our Discuss tool for sharing and responding to comments. Please take a moment and add to the conversation. We will let Roger know when the program comes up on our website, and Roger will look at the comments and respond to them as well. Members and Rotarian guests, make sure that you fill out the attendance section too. It helps us know about the reach of our efforts and also serves as a makeup for missed meetings. And if you put your email address properly below, you'll get a message that you can pass along to your club secretary. As always, we'd like to give the final word to our speaker, Roger.
Thank you. If you're faced with having to do a presentation, the most important thing to do is to think. And in thinking about what you're going to present and how to present it. Now, if you only have 3 points to make, you're far better off in your presentation to get up and to just make those 3 points and then sit down. And that way, the audience and the people who are listening to you will get those 3 points. If they have any questions that arrive out of those 3 points, then you can answer the question. But do not just merely go on and putting together all these PowerPoints, because you're just wasting your time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and I hope that each and every one of you have got something out of it.